Picture this. You walk through the door after a long, exhausting day. The house greets you with nothing but silence. The walls stand indifferent, offering no warmth, no conversation. There's no one waiting to ask how your day was, no one to care if you've eaten, no one curious about whether the work you poured your energy into had any real meaning. You collapse onto the couch, eyes fixed on the cold glow of a screen, scrolling mindlessly through an endless stream of distractions. But it's in those fleeting pauses, between the noise, the dopamine hits, the artificial connections, that a quiet question echoes. Is this it? Is this all there is? Now, this isn't a plea that every man must be in a relationship. It's not an argument against solitude, which can be both powerful and necessary. But here's the truth. If you're a man navigating life alone, without a partner, without a mission, without a sense of purpose anchoring you to something larger, you're walking a tightrope over a dark abyss. Because left unchecked, isolation doesn't just sit quietly in the corner. It grows, it creeps, it wraps around you until chaos feels like comfort. Without direction, a man can easily drift into patterns of stagnation, nihilism, and addiction. Not always dramatic or sudden, but slow, subtle, and insidious. The worst part? Over time, he becomes comfortable in that decay. The erosion of discipline doesn't arrive like a storm, it settles like dust. At first, sleeping in late feels like freedom. Skipping a workout is just taking it easy. A weekend lost to mindless entertainment seems harmless, but these small acts of neglect compound, quietly chipping away at your sense of purpose. And purpose isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. When no one holds you accountable, when there's no external force challenging you to be better, mediocrity doesn't just knock on the door, it moves in. The belief that none of this matters creeps in, and with it comes self-destructive habits, maybe excessive gaming, binge-watching, drinking, even substance abuse. Not because life is too hard, but because it feels empty. And then there's the emotional void. A man without meaningful connections often convinces himself that vulnerability is weakness. So he buries his emotions, thinking he's being strong. But we're wired for connection. Without it, those suppressed feelings morph into resentment toward society, relationships, and worst of all, toward himself. Loneliness doesn't just hurt, it distorts. It twists your worldview until you believe you don't need anyone. That isolation is your fortress, when in reality, it's a cage. Comfort isn't always a sign of peace. Sometimes it's just the absence of growth. So no, this isn't about having a girlfriend. It's about having a reason to wake up with fire in your chest, a purpose, a mission, a connection. Without it, you're not just alone, you're untethered. And that's a dangerous game to play. Living without a partner isn't just about missing companionship. It's about missing a vital catalyst that pushes men to grow, evolve, and uncover deeper meaning in life. At first glance, the idea of living freely, untethered by obligations, might seem appealing. Many men convince themselves that avoiding relationships allows them to enjoy complete autonomy, no compromises, no conflicts, no one to answer to. They frame this as freedom, a life lived on their own terms. But beneath this illusion lies a harsh reality. The absence of responsibility doesn't create freedom. It creates emptiness. Responsibility is not a burden. It's the very thing that gives life weight, substance, and purpose. When a man avoids responsibility, he's not just sidestepping hard work or sacrifice. He's avoiding the very experiences that forge his character. Without responsibility, there's no growth. Without growth, there's no progress. And without progress, what's left is stagnation, a life that feels hollow no matter how comfortable it seems on the surface. It's easy to live for yourself, to chase temporary pleasures, to drift through days filled with mindless distractions. But comfort isn't the same as fulfillment. A life spent avoiding challenges is a life spent avoiding potential. True growth lives on the other side of struggle. Relationships, especially intimate ones, are not just emotional connections, they're crucibles of transformation. They demand patience, communication, and self reflection. They expose weaknesses that solitude allows you to ignore. They force you to confront parts of yourself you'd rather leave hidden, and that's exactly why they matter. The real reason many men reject responsibility isn't because they don't want it, it's because they're afraid of failing at it. Responsibility means accountability. It means having others depend on you. That's a heavy load to carry, and the fear of not measuring up can be paralyzing. But here's the thing: fear doesn't justify avoidance. In fact, that fear highlights why responsibility is so crucial. A man who runs from responsibility remains untested, unchallenged, and ultimately unfulfilled. Sure, he might feel temporary relief from dodging commitment, but deep down, he knows something is missing. Because meaning isn't found in endless freedom, it's forged through struggle, perseverance, and rising to meet challenges head on. A man who embraces responsibility in relationships, in his career, in personal growth, doesn't just exist. He builds, he contributes, he leaves an impact. Responsibility is difficult, yes, but it's also the foundation of a life that matters. A meaningful relationship isn't about convenience or comfort. It's about growth, challenge, and transformation. Many men believe the right relationship should be easy, that the perfect partner will slide effortlessly into their lives without friction. But real relationships don't work that way. A strong partnership isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about embracing it. A good woman will test a man, not to break him, but to see if he's capable of standing firm, of leading, of being someone she can trust and respect. She'll push him to be better, to refine his character, to rise above his weaknesses. Not because she's demanding, but because she sees what he's capable of becoming. When a man is alone, it's easy to convince himself that he's fine just the way he is. There's no one to challenge his excuses, no one to expose his blind spots. He can drift into complacency without even realizing it. But a real relationship acts like a mirror, reflecting both your strengths and your flaws with clarity that solitude can never provide. A good partner will notice when you're not living up to your potential, when you're avoiding hard truths, when you're slipping into patterns of mediocrity, and she won't let it slide. Not because she's critical, but because she believes in your ability to rise above it. This is why relationships are hard, but this is also why they're necessary. A relationship teaches a man how to navigate struggle, how to compromise, how to put someone else's needs ahead of his own without losing himself. It forces him to develop patience, resilience, and emotional intelligence, qualities that are essential not just in love, but in every aspect of life. The ability to work through disagreements, to listen, to lead with both strength and kindness. These are skills that no man masters in isolation. They're forged in the fires of real connection. Many men avoid relationships because they fear vulnerability, fear being hurt, or fear being controlled. But true strength isn't found in avoidance. It's found in the courage to engage, to take risks, to open yourself up to the refining process that comes with love and commitment. Because in the end, it's not the absence of struggle that defines a meaningful life. It's the willingness to face it. A strong relationship doesn't weaken a man, it forges him. It challenges him to evolve, to step into his full potential, and to become someone worthy of respect, trust, and admiration. It's not a crutch, it's a crucible, a space where weaknesses are exposed not to diminish, but to be refined. When a man isolates himself, he may believe he's choosing strength, independence, or peace. He convinces himself that solitude is a sign of self-sufficiency, that avoiding emotional entanglements is the mark of control. But more often than not, he's not choosing strength, he's choosing fragility without realizing it. Isolation doesn't make a man stronger, it makes him brittle. Without the friction of real connection, without the responsibilities, the accountability, the emotional challenges, he's deprived of the very forces that spark growth. Growth isn't born from ease, it's forged in discomfort, in the push and pull of relationships that demand more from us than we'd demand from ourselves. When no one's there to test him, to rely on him, or to call out his blind spots, a man can easily fall into a dangerous cycle of self-deception. He starts to believe his own narrative. I'm fine on my own. I don't need anyone. Relationships are distractions, burdens, weaknesses. But beneath those layers of rationalization often lies a quiet, gnawing emptiness, a hollow space where purpose should be, a subtle ache that whispers, something's missing. One of the most insidious dangers of isolation is the resentment it breeds. A man who spends too much time alone can start to view the world through a distorted, cynical lens. He sees couples together and feels a sharp sting, not of envy, but of bitterness disguised as indifference. He watches others form connections and dismisses them as naive or just lucky. To protect his ego, he builds walls reinforced with justifications. Love is a weakness. Women can't be trusted. Society is broken. That's why I'm alone. But this mindset is a trap. The more he feeds it, the deeper he falls, into anger, detachment, and isolation so profound that it feels permanent. And the longer he stays in that space, the harder it becomes to break free, to form meaningful connections, to feel anything beyond the numb comfort of solitude. The truth? Relationships don't expose your weakness. They reveal it so you can confront it, refine it, and rise above it. Isolation hides your weakness, letting it fester in the dark, unchallenged and unchecked. Growth lives where connection exists, not because relationships are easy, but because they're not. The hidden cost of isolation, a man's silent struggle. Another risk of isolation isn't just loneliness, it's the slow erosion of emotional resilience. Human beings are wired for connection. We don't grow stronger in solitude. We grow stronger through struggle, through relationships, through the friction of life rubbing against us. A man who avoids relationships isn't just avoiding heartbreak or inconvenience. He's avoiding the very experiences that shape him. Conflict teaches patience. Disappointment builds grit. Compromise fosters wisdom. Leadership demands selflessness. Without these challenges, a man remains emotionally underdeveloped, mistaking his fragile independence for genuine strength. He may wear solitude like a badge of honor, priding himself on his autonomy. But when real hardship strikes, when life's storms hit without warning, he finds himself unprepared, lacking the emotional armor that only human connection can forge. Isolation is deceptive. What starts as a choice for peace can morph into a prison of comfort. It feels safe because it removes the risk of rejection, the sting of vulnerability. But comfort is not the same as fulfillment. A man who isolates himself might dodge pain, but in doing so, he also dodges purpose. The longer he stays in that quiet, empty space, the more those walls close in. What was once freedom becomes confinement. The only way out? To stop blaming the world, to reject resentment, to realize that growth, strength, and true satisfaction don't come from avoiding relationships. They come from engaging with them, even when it's hard. Many men living alone convince themselves that the problem lies outside of them. Relationships are too complicated. Women are too demanding. Society is rigged against me. But here's the hard truth. If a man struggles to attract or maintain meaningful relationships, he must first look inward. Am I the kind of man who deserves the relationship I desire? Too often, men focus on what they want instead of who they need to become. A strong, intelligent, emotionally mature woman isn't looking for a man who's just coasting through life. She doesn't want someone who exists. She wants someone who's striving, someone with a purpose, someone who's actively working to be better than he was yesterday. Discipline, direction, ambition. Without these, no amount of charm will create a lasting connection. Even if a man does stumble into a relationship, it will crumble under the weight of unaddressed flaws because he never built the foundation to sustain it. Becoming a man worthy of love isn't about putting on a mask. It's not about faking confidence or pretending to have it all together. It's about real, raw self-improvement, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Take care of your health. Set goals and crush them. Learn how to communicate with courage and vulnerability. Build discipline, not just routines. This isn't easy, and that's the point. Growth lives where comfort dies. It requires facing your weaknesses, owning your failures, and doing the hard work even when no one's watching. The world owes you nothing, not love, not companionship, not purpose. These are not entitlements. They are earned through the blood, sweat, and tears of personal growth. When you put yourself together, not for anyone else, but because you refuse to live a small life, you'll attract not just partners, but opportunities, respect, and most importantly, self-respect. At that point, relationships aren't about filling a void. They're about sharing a life you've already made meaningful. Meaning isn't something you find. It's something you create. You don't stumble upon it like a lost coin. You build it with your actions, your choices, your willingness to fight for something bigger than yourself. Many men drift through life waiting for meaning to show up like an uninvited guest. One day I'll feel motivated. One day the right woman will appear. One day I'll find my purpose. But one day never comes, because meaning doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who act. If you want a meaningful relationship, become a man capable of sustaining one. If you want a purposeful life, take responsibility for shaping it. This requires effort, discipline, a willingness to face discomfort head-on. A man who avoids challenges in favor of what's easy will never break free from the invisible chains he's wrapped around himself. His solitude will feel like safety until it rots into regret. The only escape is through deliberate action. Set goals, physical, intellectual, emotional, relational. Chase them like your life depends on it, because it does. Build something of value, a career, a philosophy, a family, a legacy. Contribute to the world in a way that matters. Most importantly, stop making excuses. No one is coming to save you. No one will force you to grow. No one will hand you a life worth living. That's your job. Meaning isn't waiting for you. It's waiting for you to show up and build it. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll start living a life that's not just bearable, but extraordinary.